Hi.
Hello guys, welcome back to my channel. If you are brand new here, my name is Nikki and this is my book nook. Y'all, I'm trying a little bit different of a setup today. We're in my bedroom. My cats are very confused about what's going on, so if you hear things just randomly fall in the background as they're investigating this new setup, I apologize. But yeah, if you guys have been here for a while, you might remember a few months back on my channel I did a video called Things I Hate in Books. At the time, I was just traveling, I was in a hotel room, I wanted to talk to you guys, and I just thought it'd be a fun video to film, and it was super chatty and rambly, and you guys seemed to really like it, so I just thought today I would come back on here and be a little more positive and talk to you guys about things that I love in books. My favorite specific things, favorite tropes, like certain scenes that just make my heart explode, just styles of writing, like all the things. This is once again going to be very chaotic with little rhyme or reason. I just have a list on my phone that I've been compiling over the last several months. So yeah, let's just get into it. So I feel like first we just have to talk about my favorite tropes in books. You guys constantly are asking me that, constantly asking me to film a video like ranking my favorite tropes. So I'm just here to tell you, I'm here to give you my holy trinity. We just need to talk about it. These three tropes, honestly, I feel like I could just read books containing them for the rest of my life and I would probably be content. Like, there's just so many ways each of them can go. They never disappoint me. Like, they're just always so perfect. The first one, and the one I talk about so often, is enemies to lovers, but specifically enemies to lovers workplace romances. Something about that trope, y'all, it just works for me. And enemies to lovers is just fun in general because it's angsty and we love like the suspense and the kind of slow burn and build of it all. But something about the workplace romance aspect to it makes it like you got some forced proximity. Like, there's reason for them to always be around each other and reasons that they're forced to be together and deal with each other, and it just adds another element of like competition. Like, there's just, it just makes for the perfect setup for so many like good things to happen and ensue. Like, it's just so good. The Hating Game is like my favorite book of all time. Like, I love it. It works. I have a whole freaking shelf of them, honestly. Like, I love this trope. It's just so good. If you guys have any recommendations of it, please, for the love of God, put it in the comments and I assure you I will buy it. And this next one, it's the one that just like tugs at my heartstrings the most, and seriously, like, when it's done right, it's just so incredible. It's the friends to somewhat lovers to strangers to lovers again trope. I don't know if I'm explaining that the best way, but I love a book where the people have so much history, like the couple. I love it especially when it starts from like childhood and they've known each other a really long time. There's like a slow burn, a slow build between them. I especially like it when, this is when it works the best, is when now present day we've seen that these people were friends and were close back in the day, but clearly at some point stopped talking and went their separate ways, and now they're like reuniting for whatever reason. They've run back into each other present day, and the tension like starts all over again. And it's so good when it's like that, but we're, as the story builds of like the present day tension and angst, we're seeing the tension and angst in the past. Like, if it does time jumps between like every other chapter, and we're putting the pieces of the puzzle together to figure out like what happened, like why they aren't together now, like why they're getting back together now, what was the kicker of it all, what was the reason. Like, I feel like that was the most chaotic explanation and it probably didn't make any sense, but those types of books, like People We Meet on Vacation by Emily Henry, Love in Other Words by Christina Lauren, like that kind of style of book and writing and trope just destroys me. Like, I just think because it's so realistic in a way, like so many times that trope deals with just like miscommunication or just right person, wrong time, and that's like a very realistic thing in life. So when it happens in a book, it just like hits extra hard. Yeah, that trope is very, very extra special to me, and I love it. And the third trope, honestly, you just cannot go wrong. Fake dating. This trope, I don't know why I don't know who started this trope, honestly, but so many books contain it. I feel especially books that have come out in the last couple of years. People that pretend to date for whatever reason, some sort of convenience, some sort of advantage it'll give each of them. This trope just always is so good. A lot of times there's like enemies to lovers involved with it. Even if it's just like friends to lovers that are pretending to date, it's just so good because it's like, what's real, what's not, are we acting? Like the lingering touches and stares, and when each of them don't even know like what's real anymore, and oftentimes whenever like they have to escalate things to keep up images, and then when that line gets crossed and everything just explodes, like it's just literally the greatest thing. Like it just makes for, and a lot of times like it's not even super serious, like it makes for a really fun and like cutesy rom-com moment, but it can also get like super deep. And you know, especially if it's like an enemies to lovers fake dating, they start out like hating each other, but then because they have to spend so much time together, it's like they end up kind of like bonding and having hearts to hearts and like getting closer, and then they're just actually in love, and it's just so freaking good. Like seriously, these three tropes I just love with my entire heart and soul. I feel like elements involved in all of those tropes are, you know, forced proximity and slow burn. Like those are just two things that I absolutely love and I feel like are so necessary in books a lot of the times. Like you can get away without doing forced proximity, but like slow burn for me is like, I need it. I hate when like the tension is broken too early on in a book. Like if the couple just like gets together in the first like third of it, and then I'm like, what's the point of the rest of this book? Like I need it to build. I need to be on the edge of my seat. I need to be frustrated. Like I need to be rooting for these people and dying. And like I love when like they get close and then they're like interrupted, or I just it's so good when it's so drawn out and the tension just builds and builds and builds, and then when it finally like explodes, it's just like so good and so satisfying. Like I just love slow burn. It's the best. Now that I've kind of just like been through tropes, I feel like I just want to talk about general like ways of writing and things about books that I enjoy. I've already touched on time jumping whenever I talked about the like friends to strangers to lovers trope. Time jumps in books are just so, I love it so much. Again, I love putting pieces of the puzzle together. I love like seeing pieces in the past and like trying to make sense of what's happening in the present, and when it all just like fills in and it's so beautifully done, like I just think it's so great. Like there's so many series that I love, like the Devil's Night series by Penelope Douglas. That entire series is written with time jumps and with dual point of view, which is the next thing I want to touch on. Dual point of view is so, when it's done right, again, like it's just so good. Like it's usually done right, but one thing for me with dual point of view is like you don't have to do every other chapter like switching between each person. Like I think certain chapters are just like better written from certain points of view, and like you don't have to, like if it makes the story better to be in like the girl's point of view for like 5 chapters and then like have the guy pop in and then go back to the girl and then the guy does 5 chapters, that's perfectly fine and dandy. Like I just want it to be the best experience, and like when it's done that way, and like I love it. I love seeing both sides. I love like figuring out what's in both of their heads, and I love when you've been in the girl's head for a while and you know that like she's into the guy, but then you're like in the guy's head and he like doesn't know what she's thinking and doesn't know what she's feeling, and then she's putting up a front, but we've been inside her head so we know. It's just so good. It's so good. But I also like, I don't know, like I love dual point of view, but it's also nice sometimes to just be in one person's head because it makes, you can kind of like self-insert yourself into it, and then like you, especially if it's like the girl, you know, like you the whole time like or just don't know what the guy is thinking and you don't know what he's feeling, and like you're trying to figure it out. Like I like that too. So I guess I like them both. I just generally like books. Is that the answer to this all? I don't know, but dual point of view, seriously, like so good. Just a general thing, I love when authors books, or just books in general, connect. Like I love, series are nice, but something that I've really discovered and fallen in love with in the last year are like companion novel series, meaning that it's a series of books that take place like in the same world, but each book is really its own standalone novel, but all the books in the series like have the same characters, follow the same friend group. Like a good example of that is the Off Campus series, or like the Twisted series by Anna Huang. Like the Devil's Night series is really more of a series, honestly, because there is more of an overarching story, but still, like, if you really wanted to and you really were dead set on not reading a series, I love when you are able to just read, not that I ever do this, I always read the full series, but it's just so nice when you get to spend like an entire book focused on one couple or one specific character, but then like in the background you get to see like the story build from like all the characters, and like when they make reappearances like in the later books, like it's just so good, and you get to really just get to know everybody. And then like by the end of the series, when you get to the last novel, it's just like one big happy family, and you just like feel like you know them all so well. Like that is seriously, like, I love it so much. I love when authors do that. I think it's so cool. I think it requires a lot of planning like ahead of time, obviously, but it's so worth it because I eat it up. I also just love in general when authors make their books connect, like even though they're not technically related. I love when authors just like put in little cameos of their characters from their other books, but where it's not like a big deal, to where if you didn't know, like you wouldn't think twice about it, but like if you know, you know, and you like freak out about it. A good example of this is Mariana Zapata. Like all of her books basically kind of connect in some way or the other. Like somebody is somebody's cousin, or somebody ends up going somewhere and you see a character pop up that you know from another book, or you hear a name that you recognize, and it's just a small little thing, but it just like makes me so giddy, and it just like adds a little extra flair and spice to the read, you know? Like it's just fun. It's just those little things. Colleen Hoover is also someone that does that from time to time. If you know, you know. Like November 9th has a connection to another book in her bookography, discography, what? Like in her repertoire. And when that was revealed, I literally screamed. Like I screamed out loud. It was awesome. I just love it. It's an extra little treat that authors like to give us. This next thing seriously means the entire world to me. Like it is when authors include the title of their book in the book. It just does something to me. Like, and I don't just mean like the book title makes sense because of something that happens in the book and you're like, okay, I get it. No, I want the book title said in dialogue in a very important part of the book, where when it's revealed you're like, oh shit, I get it now. It makes so much sense. Like so many titles are just kind of like vague, or just done for like, and I'm not hating, whatever, but like they're just done for marketing. Like they're just cute titles, especially like rom-coms and stuff. But like when a book has a title that's especially just kind of like weird, or like you're just like, what does this mean? You know, a title that's kind of, the one that keeps coming to mind is like Heartbones by Colleen Hoover. You're like, what the heck are heartbones? I don't know. You find out. Like that's exactly what I mean. I love that. I love it so much. Colleen Hoover is just honestly a perfect example of someone that does that. Like all of her book titles, basically. Yeah, I mean, every one of her book titles you end up like reading in her books. And so now at this point, when I read a new book of hers, I'm just like waiting for the title to appear, and every time I'm just like, oh my God, why did I not see it coming? I just love it. And it's just, I wish every author did it, because it's seriously just like so satisfying when you get to that part, and it's amazing. Another just general thing I love in books, and love when authors do, is book playlists. When they include a playlist of songs to go along with their book, it's something that I love so much. I love it because after you read the book, and like if you're kind of slumpy and you're just like missing the book, I love that you have that playlist to go back and listen to. And it can like, especially if they do it well and it's just like aligns with the vibe of the book, because you could just sit there and you can listen to it, and it's like you can listen to that playlist in the background and feel like you're rereading the book and get all nostalgic again without actually like having to reread the book. I know some people like listen to playlists, like book playlists, as they're reading the book. I can't do that because I can't focus on both things. Or some people, my sister even listens to it like before, which is cool. But yeah, I just, in general, I love when authors do that. It's just an extra little thing. And me personally, like I'm writing my own book, and I and creating a book playlist, and that is something that seriously helped me out so much. Like, it kept me motivated having that playlist and building that playlist and like connecting the songs to like the story. Like, it just, I don't know, it just makes it more real, and it just adds so much, and I love it. Okay, now I just want to get into just completely random but very specific things in books that just make me lose my mind in a good way. I am very big on the small things. I love body language when it's like in-depthly I almost said subscribed to my channel. Okay, described, like when the body language is like just the eyes are huge to me. When, like the eyes, when they like flick up to her, or like when they're darting between hers, or when they widen or darken. Like, I love all the descriptors of what eyes are doing, because I think eyes are so huge and they're so important, and the descriptors of them just really tell what the person is thinking and can change like an entire scene. And it's really important, I feel like, too, because not everyone's gonna like interpret a line or a situation the same way, and it's like when you include those little elements, like what their eyes are doing, their body language, like it just tells the story, and it makes it make sense and comes across in the way that the author intended it. I know that not everyone agrees with this. I know there's people that, and when I hear this, it makes me want to puke, because I don't understand. There's people that like just read dialogue. They're like, I don't read all that, like I skim through all that and I just read the dialogue, and I'm like, how? Like, I need all that subtle body language and the eyes and everything. Like, literally when the guy is like across the room from a girl, especially for some reason, what keeps coming to mind is like a scene where they're like at a dance or something, or like at a ball, and she's like dancing with someone else, and she looks up and like their eyes meet across the room, and it just is so good. Like, I cannot. Or like when he's looking at her and something is revealed and he like drops his gaze because he's like so heartbroken and distraught about it. Just I love it. Lingering touches, literally, like when it's pointed out, like he like, you know, his hand lingered on my elbow a second longer than it needed to, or our fingers brushed because we're reaching for the same thing. Like, literally eat that stuff up. There's a scene in Ugly Love, the ankle, that's all I'm gonna say, because if you know, you know. That scene had me screaming into my book. And it was so subtle. It was literally nothing. It was like the smallest little thing, but it just was everything. Like, I just love the subtle touches. They're so important. Okay, not to be like a little spicy here, but any scene where like people are arguing and the girl ends up like backed up into something, like backed up into the wall, backed up into the door, like she has nowhere else to go, and she's like trapped. Can you tell I love the forced proximity? Like, it just, anytime that happens, I just start like kicking my feet, and I'm just like, ah, oh my god, like what's, like shit's about to go down. And then especially she's like backed up into a wall and he like cages her in, like puts his arm on the wall, and she like can't go anywhere. Just yes, absolutely yes. And now, just to be a little more cutesy, a scene that weirdly happens in a lot of romance books, but I just love it every time, is when the girl, or even the guy, it doesn't really matter, when one of them like gets sick or gets hurt, and like the other one has to take care of them, and they see them in this like weak and vulnerable state, and again, they're spending a lot of time together because they're taking care of that person, and you know, the hearts to hearts happen and things are revealed and they learn about each other. Like, those scenes are always so pivotal in books, and they just are so cute. I can think of like several books right now that contain one that I want to like rattle off, but I'm not trying to give spoilers. But yeah, when it happens, I'm just like, please, I just love it. It warms my heart. Another very random thing, I love when something, how do I explain this? Something physical is mentioned subtly in the beginning of a book, or like throughout a book, that ends up being significant later. Like, for example, a piece of jewelry, or like a scar somebody has, or like a marking or something. When that is like brought back around later in a book and you like understand what that is, like, especially if it's said in a way where it's like, you're not meant to think much of it, but being a reader and someone that reads a lot of books, you're like, why would they have mentioned that if it's not important? But then the book goes on and you like forget about it, and then it's brought back up again and you're just like, oh my God, like that's what that was for. I love that. That's a very random thing, but I had it on my list and I had a star next to it, so I feel like I was reading a book at the time that I wrote this down that it contained that, and it just was like a big moment. So definitely love that. I feel like I want to just finish this video with a few hot takes. Ended a little scandalously. Yeah, I think that's a word. Things that I love that I feel like not a lot of people do, or it's a very polarizing thing where you either love it or you hate it. First of all, I talked about this recently in a video with a book that contained this, and I still don't know how I feel admitting it. I really enjoy books with temptation, meaning either like a love triangle or a situation where somebody, I don't want to say like straight up cheating because that sounds awful, but when somebody is with someone, because I feel like the reason I love it is oftentimes the reason it's even happening in the book is because somebody is with someone that they shouldn't be with, or someone that like doesn't bring out the best in them. So then you like insert this new character, this new man that like shows her what she deserves and like opens her eyes to what she could have and what she could be. Like that just, I love it. Like I literally love it so much. And I know a lot of people don't because they just don't like cheating, and I get it. And I obviously don't either. I don't like cheating, not in real life. I would never want that. But again, like if this guy is like better for this girl and is going to like elevate her and open her eyes to adventure and everything she needs, then I just like, I love it so much. I think it's incredible. Another thing I love that some people don't are bully romances. And that goes back to the enemies to lovers. I mean, I love angst, I love tension. I get that bully romances sometimes, like people think they get like a little too wild, and like when he's straight up just literally bullying her and being mean to her, they're not into it. But I mean, it depends what kind of mood I'm in. I think they're fantastic. I just think they're so entertaining. And then again, just the tension, and it's like, especially like it being an angry tension, just give it to me. Give it all to me. And the last thing that I love, that I know a lot of people hate, I genuinely like cliffhanger endings in books, or like open endings where the author doesn't give you all the answers and you have to just kind of interpret it to what you think it's going to be. I love books that keep me thinking for days and weeks, and sometimes even freaking years, depending on the book it is, after I've read it. Like I love to still be wondering, like, what the heck did that book mean? What was the purpose of it? Where did everyone end up? Like, I just think that's so cool. And like, I think some people think that it's like a lazy way to end a book, and you know, they just want the answers. It's really funny. My mom actually recently read The Fault in Our Stars, which is my favorite book ever. And that ending, I mean, this book is very old, whatever. It's kind of open. It's kind of left again up to interpretation, and we don't totally know like how the story fully ends. Like there's a lot of questions you have when it ends, and she's like, she still is, for days later, it's been like, that book was great, but just the ending, like what happened? Where did they end up? Like, how is she? Like, I just don't know. And I'm like, that's the whole point. And I just bonked my phone on my dresser. That's the whole point. Like, and that's life, you know? The story never really ends, and you're always wondering, like, because even in a romance book, like, okay, the couple gets together at the end, woo, like, now they got a whole life to live. Things are gonna happen, like, challenges are gonna be faced, like, you never know. And so it's kind of cool to just leave it open. As long as the rest of the book was good, it was satisfying. I'm not saying like just literally don't tell me anything and leave me like, what the heck was this? Like, give me an idea and then let me decide. Let me interpret it. But yeah, I think that's a good way to end this very long and rambly video. I would love to hear y'all's thoughts on the things that I love in books. I would love to hear the things you love if I didn't mention them. If you completely disagree with me, I would also love to hear it. I love to hear anything you guys want to tell me. But yeah, I think that is it for me today. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will talk to you very soon. Bye!